like to go ahead and introduce to you Robbie Morrison. So Robbie Morrison will be our first presenter today. If you don't know Robbie already, he's an avid blogger, he's a speaker and a thought leader in the Microsoft channel. As the Chief Solution Strategist for Velosio, Robbie's responsible for managing the evolution of Velosio's entire solution portfolio. Now, this role isn't new to Robbie. He's been a part of Velosio for, I think, 5 years now, and he spent more than 24 years in the enterprise technology sector, both as an entrepreneur and as an executive with some very successful technology companies. So as I'm sure you'll see today, Robbie's got a great deal of passion for improving the way project-driven companies leverage technology and the Microsoft Dynamics platform. So welcome, Robbie, and I'll let you introduce Jennifer.
All right, thank you, Bill. So everybody can't tell, I got a deep Southern accent. I hope that works for everyone. And I also have a cold, so if you hear me sniffling or coughing, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so Jennifer will be giving us our demo today. Jennifer's a Dynamics 365 solution expert. She'll be walking through a live demonstration of the solution. She's worked in the finance and other various areas of service-driven firms since 2000 and with Microsoft Dynamics since 2010. So moving on. So our agenda today, we're going to start with the welcome, which we've done. We're going to get into the power of Dynamics 365, spend a few minutes there. I'm going to give a little introduction to what AXIO for Professional Services is, and then Jennifer will give us a live demo. Should take between 20, 25, 30 minutes. And then we'll end with a question and answer at the end of this. So as you know, we focus on the AXIO ProServ solution. We'll focus on that today, but we want you to understand that our portfolio extends well beyond this specific solution. We have other solutions in the professional services space, and we also have plenty of solutions in other markets in both finance, HR, business intelligence. We have cloud service offerings. We provide options in the full cloud, ranging from Microsoft's Azure cloud, the Dynamics 365 cloud, our own Velosio cloud, and we also offer solutions to partners through our Stratos Cloud Alliance, which allows other partners to sell through our cloud marketplace and to leverage their solutions and their clients through our billing engines. Our clients get to leverage the Velosio relationship across a broad range of services. And today we'll just give you a little taste for who Velosio is. So our clients have told us that one of the major things that's important to them is doing business with a recognized leader. And personally, I believe we're certainly a leader in our markets. We're one of the largest Microsoft business application partners with the largest client bases in the world. We're the only Microsoft partner to be included 22 times in the Inner Circle Club, and there's no other partner ever done that. For over 30 years, we've collectively worked on more than 8,500 engagements that's resulted in 50+ industry awards, some based on our consulting prowess and our industry solutions, and some based on our growth over that time frame. We're the only Microsoft partner in the world that has been entrusted to operate the robust partner ecosystem that we have with more than 150 affiliates and be responsible for product development, marketing, and support of one of the Microsoft ERP solutions. Well, our goal is never to seek these recognitions, but when we get them, it's nice to voice them at times and give you an idea why it's safe to choose Velosio as your partner. So although we work with a variety of technologies and companies, we've always been a leader in the professional services space. We see that professional services space as companies that are project driven and project centric. Today, with well over 1/3 of our client base is made up of services companies. The experience we've gained and our knowledge of best practices in these areas is what led us to create AXIO for ProServ, along with other solutions in the professional services space. A few of the sub-verticals that we specialize in are listed on the right, and I won't read those today, but what I'd like to point out is that Velosio understands the specialized needs in many of the ProServ sub-verticals. So not only do we consider ourselves to be an expert in professional services, but we also are an expert in management and IT consulting, subscription-based billing, and a lot of the other things that go along with professional services. So why have we chosen Dynamics 365 as the foundation for AXIO ProServ? Dynamics 365 is not only built on the familiar Microsoft interface, but it's also available as a completely stable and secure cloud solution. As we'll see in the next few slides, it's far and above the most comprehensive solution available on the market today. And as you can see in the green chart on the right, we're not the only ones who believe this. In August 2017, Nucleus Research recognized Dynamics 365 as the strongest positioned forward-facing leader in the ERP space, with the greatest usability and better functionality than competing solutions. So at the core of AXIO ProServ is the Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations solution. And as we just said, we believe it's the most well-positioned ERP product available. So some of the reasons are the seamless integration across the Microsoft ecosystem, the ability to turn data into accurate and actionable insights, which help to drive faster innovation, continual improvements across the enterprise, and result in satisfied customers. With AXIO, we're able to give our customers all of this power and all the power of the solution with a repeatable implementations and seamless upgrades into the future. So what makes Dynamics 365 and Azure Cloud special? Well, to me, this is a slide that I can really explain what shines about Dynamics 365. Not only does it provide the powerful financial and operations engine, the product management that we'll be talking about, but it also provides the full power of Azure, the full power of Office 365, and Dynamics 365. It provides things like talent management, customer service, field service, sales, marketing, retail management if you grow in and need that, along with things like Azure Internet of Things, Power BI for machine intelligence and machine learning, and then it includes things like Power Apps and Flow to extend the ability of the solution out to the power users. It's just a full-featured solution available with all of this built on a service called Common Data Service, which means that all of the data is shared across all of the applications. All of the data is available. It's the same data. So it's not that data is being synced between applications, but it's that the data is the same. It's the same data source across all applications. So where do project-driven companies struggle with native 365? Now, what's missing? Well, if you're a project-driven company that needs to manage dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of consultants, you have some very specialized requirements. Companies that we speak to often struggle with many things, but some of them are things like timely billing, resource allocation, maybe aligning sales with marketing, and aligning sales and marketing with the resource availability to go out and deliver projects, and selling what the people that you have and the skills that you have, dealing with things like subscription billing and regulatory compliance like ASC 606 and IFRS 15. Not to mention many other challenges, some of which we've listed here on the slide. Again, won't read through every one of them, but there's a lot of challenges, and with those many implementations we've done, we've been able to find ways to solve these business problems for our customers. So with that, we'll introduce AXIO for professional services. In this solution, we've been able to fill the gaps. We built the solution with the gaps we just mentioned in mind, and we designed AXIO ProServ not only to provide the functionality our clients need, but to build deep, best-in-class business processes, best-in-class reporting and analytical abilities, and all of the regulatory compliances that are required as you grow. So, as we look at AXIO ProServ and some of the advanced features that we've added things like comprehensive contract management, contract renewals, realignment, repairing of contracts. We've added in advanced revenue recognition, the ability to manage all of the new revenue recognition standards. We've built in ADP integration. We've built in integration to other solutions like other payroll platforms like UltiPro and Ceridian. We've got advanced billing and invoicing. So as the companies try to streamline their back office, we're allowed the billing and invoicing to become something that doesn't take hours and months to get out. It's very quick and very scalable. And then we have Power BI content packs to drive those actionable insights across the organization, which drives business benefits such as, leveraging best practices, understanding what other companies that have grown and went through the same pain points that our new implementations are going through have done to overcome those. And then enhancing the resource management and resource requirements. Every time when a professional services company increases utilization just by a few points, it drives real money into their bank accounts. And then we have familiar and secure Microsoft Cloud solution. I mean, as you use the system, it's very similar to Outlook and Office and the things that you're doing in your everyday work environment. And then we reduce these deployment costs drastically. We'll talk about that a little bit on the next slide. We believe that that in traditional ERP implementations, over traditional ERP implementations, we're able to reduce the cost by more than 50%, sometimes more than bring it down to a fourth of what they've traditionally been. And we get this data from not only our own implementations and what we've seen over the last 2 years of implementing AXIO, but according to a study done by Panorama Consulting in 2015, the majority of organizations report extended implementation and over budget projects. So with Velosio, we purposely built and fine-tuned it to allow companies to get up and running from day one, be able to have a system that works out of the box and not have a whiteboard type implementation approach where you reinvent everything every time. These repeatable implementations we're seeing drive down the cost. We have implementations under 500,000 now. We have implementations that go 4.5 months instead of well over a year, and we're able to reduce that cost drastically, as we just mentioned. So before we talk any more about the benefits of AXIO, I'm sure y'all would like to see it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer and allow Jennifer to go through a live demonstration of our solution. Jennifer?
All right, thank you, Robbie and Bill. I'm going to go ahead and show my screen here and just make sure I get the correct one. So are you guys seeing Dynamics 365? I guess everybody's on mute, so I'll have to assume
we can see it.
Yes.
Yeah. I can absolutely see it, Jennifer.
You shared much better than I did. Yeah.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Again, this is Jen Johnson. I'm one of the senior solution architects with Velosio, and I specialize in our Dynamics 365 products. So for those of you on the call who have not seen Dynamics 365 before, this is what it looks like, whether it's AXIO or not part of AXIO Professional Services. Dynamics 365 is a web-based application. So when I came in this morning, I just hit one of my favorites for AXIO. It authenticated against my Office or my Windows credentials, and I access the product through the web. And what I can see and how I work within the product is, of course, controlled through security. I'm logged in today as a system administrator, so we get to see all of the good stuff. But if, for example, I worked in the accounting field, I wouldn't necessarily see any of the modules or things related to vendor collaboration or warehouse management or what have you. So Dynamics 365, AXIO and not AXIO is designed really with the user interface and with the user experience in mind. So what you're seeing on the screen here are called Workspaces, and Workspaces are designed so that an end user will be able to complete the entirety of a business process without having to navigate all over the product. So if I go to contract management here and go to my contract management workspace, you'll see that I have several different menu items related to the status of my contracts. I can go in and drill into specific areas, and then I can also set up some links to different reports or information that I need. So in many ERP systems, in order to complete a business process like a purchase order processing or applying cash, it's not uncommon to have to move in and out of several windows. And Dynamics across the entirety of the application is really designed so that the user experience is that they can come to a workspace and be able to complete the entirety of that business process. Users will also have the capability to create their own queries and add them to a workspace. So for example, if I am responsible not for all contracts, but maybe for specific customers or specific contracts, I can filter this query here and only have the contracts that I'm responsible for display on my screen as an end user. And that functionality really carries across the entirety of the product. It's not limited here to just contracts. As we're looking at contracts, that is the module that was added as part of our deployment of professional services. So our AXIO product follows the same convention, the same user experience as Dynamics 365 does in any other area of the product, and is completely integrated as part of Dynamics. It is Dynamics, it just carries additional functionality related to contract management. So the first thing that I want to talk about, though, before we get into contracts, is really the concept of a service product. So inside of Dynamics, you can create product records that aren't, tangible goods, but are actually service items. So you can see here as an example, I have a 1-year warranty item that I can sell, and I also have different attributes of this item. So if you think about warranty services, oftentimes you have multiple levels of a warranty that you can purchase, whether how big your deductible might be, what is included in the warranty repairs, and you don't necessarily have to create different item numbers to carry all of those different options that are available. So here on my warranty, as an example, I've created a couple variants or one variant, and I'm showing that this is a 1-year warranty, it's service level 1 or size 1, and that it is not, in this case, I'm using color to identify the service level that my warranty provides. So your company will be able to create multiple service levels, or maybe if you provide services, you might have associates and seniors and principal type consultants. You can create those different service levels using one item master, and then you have different options to deliver that master rather than having to create individual items for each thing. So as you're starting to work through a contract with a prospect or a customer, really the first place that a contract starts inside of Dynamics 365 Professional Services is under Unconfirmed Contracts. And you can see here that I have a couple examples that are laid out. And when you start a contract, of course, you'll identify who the client will be for the contract, and you'll identify your start date and your end date. And then in the details of the contract, you'll identify the line items or what is actually being sold or provided to the customer. So in this case, I'm providing a 1-year contract, and it started actually in January, so I'm doing this in arrears. And then this contract is ending on 12/31. And you can see down here in the contract lines, I'm able to indicate who my customer will be for the contract. It does not necessarily have to be the same customer that is listed on the overall contract. So as an example, I may contract with a company that is, you know, a building, for example, but maybe it is the landscaping portion of the company that gets charged out for a certain portion of the contract or what have you. So the account that is getting billed for the line items of the contract does not necessarily have to be the same company that is on the header of the overall agreement. I also identify the line details of, I also identify the line details of what is involved in my contract delivery. So here again, starting my delivery January, my contract price is laid out here, and then I can provide some additional information as well. So significantly, I can indicate my different customer, I can indicate how I'm going to, what project I may attach this to, and then over in frequency, I can also indicate how often I'm going to bill for this. So in this example, it's a 1-year contract, and I'm going to provide them a monthly billing for their contract. And I can also indicate how I want to bill that. So are we billing upfront, or are we billing in arrears? And so these details will continue to be added as you're working through the details with your prospect or your customer about what this contract will look like. And then once the contract is ready for approval, you'll go ahead and submit that into workflow. So when you select workflow, you'll indicate submit. We don't have time to show it in today's presentation, but you can set up your workflow to be really as simple or as complex as the organization needs. So it could be just a simple single level approval. It goes to a project manager or a revenue manager for approval, and then that's the end of it. Or you could set up scenarios where perhaps if the contract is longer than 2 years or over X number of dollars, or in a given product line, it would need to go to alternate resources for approval. All of those scenarios are supported inside of Dynamics and inside of the workflow. Users will receive their workflow notifications either directly here in the product, and I can show you one of the screens that you can use for that. Employee self-service, where are you? Right here. So you'll get your workflow notifications either directly within the product, or you'll also receive them via a mobile device or just via email if you choose to do that. There we are. And you can see as an employee right now, I have, this is my employee workspace, and I happen to have one work item that is assigned to me. Don't know why I'm getting that error. And then as I receive this, I would have the options to go ahead and approve it, reject it, or what have you. All right, so once my contract has made its way through workflow, there are a couple other things that I'll access to complete that contract. So once it comes through workflow, I will do assignment of my renewal process, and I'll also set up my contract relationship. So this is where I indicate that my contract is going to be part of a project, and then I set my my project line, and I confirm my renewal process, and then I'll come up to this part of the screen, and I'll just change the status of the contract to fully approved, and I'll move it to contract status. And moving the contract to contract status really means that the contract is viable and it's kind of in process, if you will, for the organization. It's made it all the way through pre-sales, and it's being worked on at this time. Right, so let's look at a couple of those. All right, so when I come in and look at my contracts that are currently open, you can see that I can see all of them, but if I wanted to filter this screen so that I could just see mine, I can filter at the top of these columns, very similar to what you can with Excel. So now I'm looking at just contracts that I've created over the last few days. And then if I go to my contract lines, I can see some additional detail around that contract. So I can see my contract ID, I can see my funding ID, my customer account, the project that it's related to, and so on and so forth. So I'm able to check some additional details. I'm also able to change my billing policy as needed. I could add an additional billing policy or remove this one. You can't change everything about a contract once it's been fully activated, because obviously you don't want to have a lot of changes in flux on a contract that's been fully approved and executed. But there are a couple select areas that you can change. One of those areas is that you can change the billing policy. Another change that you can make to your contract is how it is renewed. So you can set up or modify what you had in the original contract. So you can indicate that it will no longer be renewed, or the renewal process that you would like to follow. And then you can also set how you want the renewal cost to be calculated. So for example, if you need to add a monetary or a percentage increase to the renewal, you can set that up in advance so that when you run your renewal process as part of your contracts, you won't have to go in and modify each one of those contracts for your price increase because you've already configured it on the contract itself. So significantly, as you're delivering goods from your contracts and your projects, it's not uncommon to have to engage in other activities. And Dynamics 365 is a fully functioning project management system. So we can take advantage of all of the capabilities that are in the system as part of my project to be able to monitor activities, to do resource planning. You can do timesheets inside of project management, and you can purchase goods and sell additional goods to your prospect or to your customer. So as an example, under a warranty agreement, it wouldn't be too unusual for me to perhaps have to purchase a replacement part, or maybe contract out a replacement service technician. And I'm able to do that on my projects. I can create both new sales orders, so perhaps I'm selling them a replacement good, and then I can also create purchase orders to bring in either third-party services, or even if I had tangible items that I needed to buy as part of servicing this warranty and providing this service to the customer, I'm able to do that. So you're not limited on a contract to just the portion that is covered under the contract. As part of the project, you can absolutely invoice your customer and procure additional goods, tangible goods, and services that are needed for the execution of the project and for the contract. All right, so for the contract revenue, as you saw when we set up our contract earlier, I had set up that we would have periodic revenue recognition on a monthly basis and that it would be in arrears. So I certainly can execute that on each individual contract independently, but I'm kind of lazy and we have a lot of contracts, so I'm going to run that across the board for my organization so I don't have to go in at the end of each month and touch every single contract. So as an accountant or a billing provider for your organization, I'll come into my contract management area and I'll just set up to run revenue recognition. And I can indicate here the revenue recognition that I want to run. So I've got a contract that I had started for earlier this year. So I'm going to run my revenue for the end of February, and that should pick up on a contract that I have in place here. So at this point, it will give me all of the contracts where revenue recognition is viable. So if I had, 300 different contracts that were running at the same time, I would see all of those records deployed here, and I could choose, if needed, which ones I want to go ahead and post my revenue on and which ones I don't. So in this example, I just have one, and so I can either use select all and it'll mark it for me, or I can just go ahead and mark it individually. And then once I select that, I'm going to go ahead and run revenue recognition, which, as you can see, is the process where I'm going ahead and posting my revenue. All right, so now I have posted the revenue for my project. So I have a couple more things that I need to be able to do. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a sales order so that I can go ahead and invoice my customer for that revenue. I don't know that you would always want to necessarily print and send the sales order to the client. It may be that they have you on a periodic invoicing base. So the system provides the ability to generate the invoices, and then whether or not you actually need to send them would certainly be up to your organization. But we'll go ahead and create our sales order. And again, I'm working in the end of February. I'm a little behind here, but I'm going to create for the end of my month of February. And the system provides me a notice that it has created for me a new sales order that is related to the contract that I just did my revenue recognition for. So now if I go to that contract, or excuse me, to that sales order, we'll be able to see what that looks like. And I've got my friends here at Fun Times. It's a 1-year warranty, but I'm only hitting them with one of the months here, and it's $300 because the entirety of my contract was $3,600 or $300 per month. Now you'll notice here it's a little bit striking that my my ability to actually generate an invoice is grayed out here. And that's because this invoice is part of a project. And so the system recognizes that this invoicing should be part of a project activity and not done the way that you would like a traditional distribution sales order. So we'll go in through the project to generate our invoice, but otherwise the sales order is really the same as any other sales order you would have inside of Dynamics. And as you can see, I have the ability to add a pretty significant amount of customer information in my header, including terms and what have you. And then I could also add additional detail to the sales order if I was required to do that as part of my deliverable to my customer. All right, so now I've got my sales order, and I could go to the project and individually look for this project and look for this open order and go ahead and propose an invoice for it. But again, I can also run that process across the entirety of all of my contracts. So when I suggest to create invoice proposals, I'm telling the system to look for any sales orders that have been delivered for projects or contracts and go ahead and do an invoice proposal for those. As you can see, as an end user, I can set different parameters based on what it is I need to look for. Maybe I am working on a specific contract, or as a billing analyst, I only want to run invoice proposals for the contracts I'm responsible for. So the system provides me several different filters so that I'm only creating proposals for the contracts and the projects that I want to. In this case, as a demo environment, we only have a few that are available. So I'm going to be bold here and just run them for everything. All right, so as you can see, that resulted in providing me with an invoice proposal, and we can look at those. Let's go to project management. And you can see here under project management, I have a lot of capabilities. We could do, you know, a week-long webinar about all the capabilities within projects and contracts. But what I'm going to focus on today is just looking at the project invoice proposals that I have generated. And here's our one for $300 that we just generated a moment ago. And you can see here that I can reference my contract number, I can reference my project number, and some details about the project. And I can see here that it's an invoice proposal, so I don't actually have an invoice number assigned to it yet. And as you can see on the screen, for projects that, or excuse me, for revenue that has already been invoiced and posted, that in addition to seeing that I did generate a proposal, I can also see that it has been, in fact, been invoiced, and I can reference the invoice number that was created as part of that process. So I'm going to go ahead and post this. All right, and you can see I have several options around whether or not I want to print the invoice. And using print management means a couple different things. Of course, that could mean, what printer inside of my building do I want to send that to? But inside of Dynamics, print management also includes whether or not the customer would receive their invoice via email, or it goes to maybe a stored location for them. All of those parameters around how your customer will receive the invoice are controlled through print management. Dynamics 365 for contract management projects and throughout really the entirety of the product is designed that you could be a paperless company. You do not have to print documents. They're all stored inside of the application. And if your company is ready for an entirely paperless process, Dynamics 365 is fully compliant and supportive of that. But today I'm going to go ahead and just post my invoice, and I don't need to print it, so I'm turning printing off, and I click OK. It gives me a warning that I'm posting with not printing. That's also OK. And now you can see that I've gone ahead and my line down here is updated to invoice status, and I can click on that invoice if I want, and the system will bring me to that. And we can take a look at what that looks like. All right, so this is going to be the standard invoice that prints out of contract management, or really out of Dynamics as a whole. And you can see here that it does carry the required information for the contract billing, but I will say that it's not uncommon for customers involved in contracts, projects, or really any type of goods that are being invoiced, where we will deploy a very specific invoice template based on the needs of the client. So it's common to, maybe want to show your totals as a block, often have terms and conditions that are printing or remit to information, and then also to have your logos displayed, sometimes multiple logos. So all of that can be enabled. Invoicing is an SSRS report inside of Dynamics, so we can really create some simple or really very dynamic invoice templates based on the needs of your organization. But if you don't have any needs at all and you say, you know what, we're not even going to send these out, we just need to post them, then this is what your project invoice looks like inside of the system. All right, so now that I've kind of walked through the process of creating a contract and then having a contract that has some revenue that is recognized on a monthly basis, as we did here. I talked about how you can add different things to your project around different goods and services that need to be delivered. So I want to go back just quickly and look at my contract management and revenue. And when I come into the contract management module, which is the entirety of all of the functionality related to contract management, you can see that I do have a workspace available to me. And again, as we looked at this workspace earlier, this is where, as an end user, I'm able to keep track of all of those activities that I have that are in flight or mid-flight, if you will. And again, your users will be able to add workspace tiles or lists as they need, so that this becomes kind of a one-stop shopping, if you will, so that as a billing analyst or as a project manager for the organization, I can configure this screen to provide me all of the information that I need as an end user to be very effective in my workday. Now, beyond that, with Dynamics 365, as Robbie mentioned earlier today, the product comes with Power BI is part of the Dynamics 365 portfolio. And as part of AXIO, Velosio has developed a dashboard that is specific to contract management. Now, my demonstration environment is kind of in flux right now, so I apologize I can't show this in the live environment, but I can show you what it looks like. And so BI will be updated regularly as a result of activity that is happening in Dynamics 365. And your users will be able to access these dashboards embedded directly in their in their Dynamics 365 instance. And BI includes drill-in capabilities. So if I needed to say, well, what are these 9 projects, I would be able to drill in directly there and get to those 9. And then as an end user of this dashboard, I would be able to show and hide different aspects of the dashboard, again, to be a fit for what my user experience needs to be. So again, as I go back to Dynamics and Dynamics 365 as a whole, it is a very strong top-tier ERP system. And then with what Velosio has added specific to professional services and contract management, the capabilities here for a company that engages in professional services are just fantastic. And it's a great fit for pro services organizations. And it's also an awesome user experience because the user has a lot of flexibility to maintain the screens as they need to be very efficient in their workday. All right, so I just spoke a lot. I'm going to pause there and open up for questions, Robbie and Bill.
Hey, Jennifer, you did have a question just a minute ago. Joanne asked if the system has the capability to have detailed invoice comments, like some of the other Dynamics products.
Yes, it does. So what you can do is if the comments are customer specific, you can save those on the customer record, or if they're just generic and they would be on any customer, we can just save them as a generic note. And then it's just a matter of pulling that note onto the invoice format, the SSRS report. And then sometimes you want to be able to add, like I'll call them ad hoc comments, right? For a very specific invoice, the billing analyst wants to add some text or information. And it's the same type of logic. We would provide a place inside of Dynamics to store that information, and then we would tell the invoice format to print that information if it's available, and then to hide that block if there's no details available.
Okay. Robbie, did you have a comment?
No comment.
Okay.
Jennifer answered.
Okay, great. Hey, we have a couple of questions that were sent in over the chat. For those of you who are new to GoToWebinar, just so you know, if you look in your GoToWebinar panel, there are several sections. You'll see webcam and audio and different things. But if you look to the one that says questions, go ahead and click the drop-down arrow to open that, and you can type your question in. And actually, Joanne has another question. She said she meant invoices entered on the time cards that flow to invoices.
Yeah, so I can answer that. Absolutely. When you're doing your, when the users or the consultants are inputting time into the time and expense system, they have a place to put both admin comments, which do not show on the invoice, or they can put invoice comments. If they put invoice comments, then, and we've selected one of the invoice formats that show comments, then when the invoice is printed, that full invoice comments comes out onto the invoice to the customer.
Okay. Okay.
And Joanne, I hope that answered your question.
Great. So again, if you guys have questions, go ahead and type them in the question box. I'll ask a couple that came in over the chat. How large do we need to be for this solution? What if we're smaller than that?
So if you're so on the smaller side, so I'd say normally it's somewhere around 25 million in revenue customer and up, maybe 50 million revenue, and that's the kind of very base. A good sweet spot for starting in the AXIO is maybe between the 50 and 100 million. Below that threshold, we have a solution called Progressus. Progressus is has a lot of the same functionality. It doesn't have as much complexity in the fact that it's based on the Dynamics 365 Business Central solution. It's built more for, this solution's built more for the multi-entity large enterprises where the Business Central is built more for the medium size enterprises. And that's our solution in that space. And it can go all the way down to the 2, 3, 4, 5 user implementations.
Yeah, I would just add to that real quick, Robbie, that Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics 365 across the applications does require for finance and operations a 20 user minimum. And so if you guys either by revenue or by user count, would need to meet that 20 user threshold needs to be met for this product to be viable. And if that's not the case, then we can look across the breadth of your enterprise applications, or as Robbie mentioned, we do have other products that are also a good fit for services industries.
Okay, one other question is pretty simple. What is Dynamics 365 PSA? Is that the same as this?
Now, Dynamics 365 PSA is the solution not built on the financial engine. It's built for companies who already have a financial system, already happy with their financial system, and they're just looking for a project management, resource management solution. We can connect that solution into many of the financial solutions out there, and it's by nature fully integrated into the Dynamics 365 sales and marketing solution as well.
Okay. Okay. I have one more in the chat. What if we're not a services company, but we use projects extensively?
If you use projects extensively, then you're a project-based company to us. Project-based companies have a lot of the same requirements, a lot of the same needs as what we would consider to be a professional services business. We can tailor the solution to fit your needs, both solutions, whether you're an enterprise or a mid-sized business. And a lot of times when you're a project-based business, you may not have the need for all of the accounting solutions that we have here. So in those instances, sometimes the PSA solution is a good fit.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and throw a question in there. So what do you mean when you say this is a cloud solution, Robbie? Because we talk about AppSource and Azure and whatnot. What does this mean? This is an entirely cloud-based solution.
So what we mean when we say cloud-based solution is that the solution requires you to install no hardware or server infrastructure in your environment. Everything is hosted in the Microsoft cloud, and all the user needs is a functioning web browser. If they have a computer with a web browser, then they're good to go. Or if they have an iPad or some type of tablet with a web browser, then they're good to go. That's all they need. It's just a functioning web browser. All of the back office functionality that's housed in the servers is managed by Microsoft, managed by the Microsoft cloud, with no need for the client to do anything. So greatly reduced complexity for the IT teams.
Okay. Now I was about to switch the screen back over, but it looks like Jennifer's up to something over here. Did you have something you wanted to share, Jennifer?
No, we're good. I was just going to show, as Robbie was talking about how things are managed in the back office, I was going to open Lifecycle Services real quick. But
okay.
Really, Lifecycle Services is kind of the if you will, the gatekeeper for your instance of things like code upgrades, but also all of your business process instructions and all of the activities that are managing or happening in the background to administrate and manage your Dynamics 365 application will happen through Lifecycle Services.
Great. Okay, 1 second. All right, Robbie, any closing comments before we move forward?
No closing comments from me.
Okay.
Hopefully we gave everybody a great overview today.
Well, everyone, thank you very much for attending today. We really enjoyed having you here. We hope you learned a lot about the solution. Actually, you got to see several solutions today. If you'd like to know more, you can visit our website at www.velosio.com. If you'd like to read blog posts and some educational posts or download materials about the solutions, you can go to velosio.com/blog. You'll see a number of posts written by Robbie there. With that will conclude the event today, and we thank everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Take care.